is the owner or operations manager of Fertility Bridge, which is located in Buffalo, New York. He got his undergraduate degree, a Bachelor of Arts, at State University of New York. He says it's SUNY Oswego. His favorite artist is Frederick Law Olmsted, and this gentleman is a landscape architect. And he likes him so much because he brings the art of nature into cities, which I thought was very nice. And he tells me that he has to be the owner of his own company because he's never done a CV. So Griffin is going to speak to us today about social media and its importance with the patient experience.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Is my mic good?
Yes.
If I figure out the clicker, we'll be all set for that. Janet was giving me a little bit of grief because I didn't give her anything to introduce me with, and I realized that I forgot something that I should have given to you, which I don't know if any of you know this about me. My senior high school graduating class voted me the most likely to go on to speak at the Midwest Reproductive. After all these years, I finally did it, and I'm excited to be here. I love talking about this because it's something we don't talk about nearly enough in our space, certainly not in a way that's actionable, and it's happening to the rest of the world. So the only thing that I have to disclose in getting started with all of that is that I own a marketing firm for fertility centers. We're really good at it, but I don't own any stocks or shares in any of the other companies or platforms that I'm going to talk about. So if you've gotten a chance to know me over the last year, or if you've had some correspondence with me, read my blog, you know my email list, would you please raise your hand? Would you please get your hands up high? Okay, so all of these people know what the rest of you are about to find out, which is that I am obsessed with reverse engineering this patient experience that we've all been talking about, and how someone goes from being a complete stranger to an actual patient of the practice, and using digital media to do that. So I'm going to take something, this broad, ubiquitous concept, digital media, and drill it down into some actionable things that you can use for a number of different areas across your practice management, not the least of which is patient recruitment. And so even as I start to get into some more of the advanced, techy, nerdy sort of tactics of things, you're going to be able to see how I got there, because I start with one very basic principle. The success of anything that you do with digital media is predicated on the attention of the person that you're talking to. The who, as opposed to all of the things. The who we're talking to and what's important to them. So I get really cautious when I hear the word healthcare marketing or healthcare marketing agency, because that kind of violates that rule, right? If I don't know who we're talking to, then I don't know what we're talking about, and I don't know who a healthcare patient is. The people that we talk to, all of the pain and suffering that Allie talked about today, what do they have in common with someone who's getting orthopedic surgery on their wrist for a tennis injury, right? So if we're just talking to healthcare patients, this broad ubiquitous concept, then I don't know what branding and strategy means. I'm talking about increasing IVF cycles. I'm talking about increasing the number of referrals that we get from existing and former patients, and improving our conversions of people who are just scoping out our practice to actually becoming patients of our practice. The technology matters only insofar as it's the delivery mechanism. And it's important to study and to be abreast of, because it's always changing, and you won't get people's attention if you're not using it correctly. It's changed a lot in the last 50 years. I know that all of you are too young to remember this. There was a time before Netflix and Hulu. And so as an advertiser 50 years ago, it was very easy for me to get your attention when I wanted to put my message in between your content. Because when Derek sat down, or Derek's dad sat down to watch All in the Family, he had 3 choices to choose from, or a handful of FM and AM radio stations, or 1 or 2 newspapers per city. And so I could interrupt your content because it was also not on your timing. Contrast that with today, when we have infinite media choices. And I was going to ask like who's on Netflix and who's on Facebook, but I thought of a better question. Please raise your hand if in the last 12 months you've gotten annoyed when someone called you instead of texting you or sending you an email. Please raise your hand if you got annoyed when someone called you instead of... emailing you, or texting you. We're so obsessed with our time and everything that's right here that for as knowledgeable and charismatic and good-looking as I am standing in front of all of you right now, I still don't have your captive attention, even in this prison of a room with no windows at a place that you have to be at for your career, that for the rest of this conference and every conference we go to, you'll see the same behavior, the reality of the world that we live in. And so, how do we get our message to people? How do we recruit new patients if we can't interrupt the content and every message that they want to consume? We create the content that they want to consume. We produce the content that they want to consume. We're very fortunate in the infertility space because there's a massive and growing demand for infertility content. The Beat Infertility, I just spoke with a woman who has an infertility podcast that has 24,000 downloads, and she's only been doing her podcast for a year. There are hundreds of thousands of pins on Pinterest and hashtags on Instagram talking about infertility and trying to conceive and everything like that. The zeitgeist of what is being talked about is a lot different from what we're being talked about. And now we're starting to see things that go just beyond our space to being shared tens of thousands of times that it's seen by millions of people. And we can use this content to solve a very common problem of ours, which is that every one of us has hundreds of people per month, thousands if you're a bigger practice, coming to our websites and doing nothing, taking no action to actually becoming a patient. Or tell me if this sounds familiar. You have somebody that calls the practice and they say they want to know how much IVF costs, or they want to know what their specific treatment will be like. So you try to get them to come in for an initial consult, and then that's the last you ever hear from them. Very frequently that happens because we're trying to get people to make a decision that is very different from the way they make decisions in the rest of their lives, and certainly the way they use the internet to make decisions. We're trying to get them to go all the way from the top of the funnel, awareness of knowing what our practice is and what their problem is, past consideration and comparison evaluation, all the way down to making a decision which, by the way, is usually a lot bigger in their minds than it actually is. Right? We're talking about initial consult. And very often for people, REI equals IVF. And if I come into that office, they're not going to let me leave until they start retrieving eggs from me. And using this content in a way that's measured, using software or different kinds of trackability, we can nurture those people all the way down and track every single dollar that we spend. I'm talking about ebooks that tell people how to talk to their friends and family about infertility, then to a web series of what infertility treatment is like, down to very targeted ads that invite people to a private webinar for those people that just need a few more questions answered before they make their decision. And I realize that we're still pretty far from that. For most of us in this room, many of us, our homepages still say, welcoming Dr. So-and-so, June 2012, right? That I need to give you something of a gateway drug to be able to get you into this broader world of content marketing and conversions and digital media. And that gateway drug is social media. Social media is the lowest hanging fruit for you guys. Social media is the greatest generator of word of mouth referrals for fertility centers. I will put it even more frankly. If you are a fertility center and you are not using social media correctly, you are not coming anywhere close to the number of word of mouth referrals that you should be getting from existing and former patients. And I say correctly, because every time we talk about social media, even in meetings in our field, it's what is social media? What is Twitter? What is Facebook? That's great in 2006, but we're not getting any practical advice of who we're talking to and what we're using it for. And so all that comes of it is we tweet MRS 2016, and the last time we ever tweeted was MRS 2015. And the advice is too late. Google Plus never became a thing. And Foursquare was a flash in the pan. Why are we still learning about it? And by the time we get our practices being comfortable on Twitter, the attention graph on Twitter has gone like this. When I start a new strategy with my clients of how we're going to use social media to recruit new patients. I start with two very simple questions. One, where are new moms talking about babies and their pregnancies? And where are people with infertility communicating with each other for support? Answer those two questions, and you don't have to be on 6 or 15 or 20 social media networks. You can't. You are one person or you're a small organization, and that's too much to handle. Master one before you move on to the next one. And so in a 2016, early 2017 world, this is what our priorities look like. So we'll talk about Facebook and Instagram today, which might be good news to some of you, because if you're on social media, you're probably on Facebook. Happens to be the most established and largest social network. And so I usually see two scenarios when I see fertility centers on Facebook. Either they have no audience, like 100 or 200 people, and they're not talking to anyone, or we have our web developer doing our social media for us. And so, because it's the internet, right? So you're good at writing code, so you must be good at talking to human beings about infertility. Whatever, we'll have you place our Facebook advertising, and we'll get 24,000 fans. 24,000 fans is a lot, even for a large market like this one. So we got 24,000 fans, we're posting every single day. Sometimes we're posting 2-3 times a day. We've got a big audience, we're putting out all this content. We must be making an impact. So when we look at the same page, when we look at their content, we see that no one is liking or commenting or sharing the content. Or 2 people are, or 5 people are. 2 people out of 24,000? Why is no one engaging with the content? No one's engaging with it because no one's seeing it. No one's seeing it because no one's engaging with it. And at the root of this vicious cycle is that there's just too much information for any of our patients or any of us to be able to consume. It's hubris for us to think just because we write a blog post or we tweet something out that that's going to have someone's attention. Think of it this way. More information is created in a 48-hour cycle than was created from all of human history to 2003. This figure is 6 years old. It's probably down to a 24-hour cycle. More information created in a single day than in all of human history to 2003. And the social networks have the same problem. They need to keep you on their platform. So the way they do that is by curating the content, giving it context to what's relevant to you. So how it looks on Facebook is you've got your news feed, right? Please raise your hand if you're on Facebook personally. Will you put your hands up? Almost all of the room. So this is what it looks like when you're logging into your desktop, or if it's on your phone. These are the stories that Facebook's giving you. I'm not privy to Facebook's IP, but I can tell you you're going to see more of what you engage with, and eventually nothing of what you don't. So we're not competing with other fertility centers on social media. We are competing with Lady Gaga. We're competing with Janet's trip to Australia. We're competing with the Boston Red Sox. We're competing with the best friend's wedding and the new puppy and everything that could possibly be important in our prospective patient's life. And that's a super daunting task when you're a small healthcare practice and you don't have an infinite budget, and it's why I did not want to work with fertility centers when Mike Sullivan called me a few years ago. And then I realized something that was smack in front of my face. Oh yeah, you could be storytelling in a way that's native to the platform, meaning native to the reasons why people are on Facebook and Instagram to begin with. Facebook and Instagram are